Hi guys, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Jim.
And this is
Ready to sell.
This is our
Fourth episode.
That's right.
Right.
4 down and many more to go.
Many more to go.
So Jim, what are we talking about today?
Well, this week is going to be very interesting because we've had a couple of interesting experiences.
We always have a couple of interesting experiences. If it isn't our own kids.
Yeah, boy, that's a whole podcast. That's a whole podcast in itself. It really is.
All sorts of things. But what in particular are you talking about? The interesting things that happened to us to share?
Well, we had 2 open houses in the last few weeks.
Right.
And one was great and one was not.
Right.
And it had somewhat to do with the property, but certainly nothing to do with the actual houses. They're both very nice areas and everything. But we're just noticing some differences, and I think we need to call it.
What are we going to call it, Jim?
The housing boom is over. What do we mean by that? Well, we've seen 20 runaway lives. Save yourselves. The housing boom is over. What we mean by that is last year we saw 27% increase in housing prices
in Utah alone, right?
Over the last 2 years, roughly 45%.
Right.
Well, this year was projected to be 15, but now it's projected to be 8, sometimes 6%, which is about normal, right?
So the nation average is like 4%.
Yeah.
Is usually
and so we're getting back down to normal.
Right.
Right. But normal from where we've been seems very abnormal. Right? The boom, the huge.
Well, it's because people are seeing like crazy house kind of trying to get a house. And then all of a sudden it's like slowed.
Right. Slowed to normal, which is what is interesting.
Is it still really normal though? Because you're still getting multiple offers.
Well, some places sometimes, but also you're seeing prices being slashed, right?
Not slashed per se, but yeah, definitely.
Yes. Slashed. And then some places you're seeing the prices rise. Right. So it just depends. And so there's actually a map that shows what areas look to maybe be more, I'm not going to say depressed, but look to be maybe where they have to slash prices or have some decreases, where some areas that are going to stabilize. Utah is in the stable area. So we're not going to see any real...
We're not going to see Walmart slashed prices?
We're not going to see Walmart slash prices. We're not going to see... There's no bubble. Let's kind of explain that.
Okay.
Right? So there's all this talk of, is it a bubble? Well, a bubble requires housing prices to be inflated beyond their means of supporting themselves. Right. And that's not true. So we don't have a housing bubble, but we do have a leveling off, maybe an adjustment period.
Right.
So what does that have to do with us? What?
And what does it have to do with our open houses?
Our open houses, well, I think they're just good examples. So the first open house we saw was in a affluent area. If you know Salt Lake, it was up by the Salt Lake Country Club.
Right. Lovely area.
Yeah, lovely house. Everything was great. We saw a ton of people.
So it was priced over $1 million.
And so people who are looking at that house are, let's call it demographic 1.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Then the open house we did last weekend was not that. It was in Pleasant Grove, lovely condominium.
Right.
It was
top floor.
So great views. It wasn't staged. I'm going to have to dock you half a point for not staged.
Which I think definitely is part of what didn't bring people in. When you look at the photos online, it just looks like an apartment.
Yeah.
A nice apartment.
Right.
An apartment.
But you can't tell. There's no scale without the furniture in there.
Right.
And then the other thing, so here's the other thing too. This is kind of a tip. We should save this for later, but I'm going to share it now. When you do digital staging, you have to be careful of, Tracy hates digital staging. When you do digital staging, you have to be careful of
what we
call tactile buyers. Here's what happens. They see the place, it looks fantastic. They show up, there's no furniture, they leave. Right? Now, that's not all buyers. But definitely there's a percentage of buyers that happens to.
So you bring that up
because there was no staging in the second one, but it was, like I said, a different demographic.
It was a different demographic, but I think the one thing to really kind of that says a lot there is that we only had one person
come through
and their partner, their friend, come through with them that whole time. So it does show kind of what what real estate is doing right now in what you're saying.
Yeah. So in demographic 1, you got the $1 million buyer, right? In demographic 2, let's call it just half for simplicity, the $500,000 buyer.
Right.
Well, what's happening now with interest rates? Let's put a question out there, right? If you're a $1 million buyer and let's say you have cash, is the interest rate going to affect you?
No.
Because you have cash, right? If you're in the general 500,000 to sadly probably 800,000. I mean,
well, the average in Salt Lake is like 660.
Right now. So I'm kind of covering both ends. So 5 to 8, right?
Sure.
You're going to be taking out a mortgage and probably a fairly large one. And so the interest rate going from 3.1 to 5.1 in the last 5 months is going to be a big deal.
Right.
So those two demographics, I think you have to be careful. And how does that help you? Well, it helps you by making your house the most attractive it can possibly be for the buyers who are still out there.
Right. So we are seeing this cooling down, is what you're saying. And so how important it is to present your house in the best light possible.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we're here to help you do that.
Yeah.
Well, really, Tracy's here to help you do that. Tracy's the stager extraordinary. So let's talk a little bit about our, what are we going to call this? The local what?
Local.
Keeping it local. Local for local.
Local with the Nelsons. Yeah.
We'll find something. We apologize. But the first local place that is both a bookstore and a restaurant. Was it a bookstore first or a restaurant first?
No, it's a restaurant restaurant and bookstore. It's what they usually. So it's usually Oasis Cafe and Bookstore. Isn't that typically how you reference to it?
We finally told you. It's Oasis
Cafe and Bookstore.
And it's
how people usually know it.
Down on 3rd East, downtown, and about 2nd South.
Right. But what is the name of the bookstore, Jim?
Golden Braid.
There you go. Yeah.
I always call it Oasis Bookstore. And Tracy actually corrected me right before the podcast. Right. I honestly, I don't remember it being called Golden Braid. It's just the Oasis Bookstore.
Right.
And I think it was a bookstore before it was a cafe.
No, actually, they both existed, and then they were brought together. They both existed on their own, and they came together in that building.
They didn't see each other? They didn't see each other?
Yeah, they didn't see each other.
There was a bookstore over here, and there was a restaurant over here, and they opened the door like, oh
yeah.
my gosh! Yeah. You've been there the whole time.
Exactly, Jim. Exactly.
What a weird world.
Seriously.
What a weird world.
Yeah.
Anyway, Oasis Bookstore, open on Sunday. They're great. We love them. We've actually loved them for a long time.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place. It's a great place for brunch on Sundays. It's a great place for dinner any night. It's lovely.
And while you're waiting for your table or just waiting for your food you can sneak out to, you go to the bookstore section.
Which is super cool.
And it's right there. And it smells so good in there. That's the thing. The bookstore smells amazing.
And it doesn't necessarily smell like the restaurant.
No, because the restaurant smells like food.
Right.
But it's good food. Right. But the bookstore just smells like kind of this spiritual oasis. With fountains and Buddhas.
Okay.
And spice and incense. Anyway, go there.
Yeah, Oasis.
Run out now and go.
Cafe and Golden
It's
Braid.
Fantastic. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about. Every week we want to talk about something that helps you sell your house, helps you stage your house, helps you market your house. So this week we're going to talk about
a pop of color.
Yes, a pop of color. What do you mean by a pop of color, babe?
Well, before we get to the pop of color, Jim.
Let's back up.
Yeah, just a little bit. So far we've talked about decluttering.
Yes.
Your front door,
curb
appeal.
Mow the lawn, for heaven's sakes.
Right. We've talked about just kind of a few essential things that most people know about. But in bringing up the pop of color, before we actually get to that point, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, after you've done those things, how important it is to clean your house. Everybody knows that. But when you're selling your house, you want to pay extra attention to the details, as I've said. And you want to really consider, if you can, a professional cleaning.
Well, what if you can't?
So thank you for asking, Jim.
That's what I'm here for.
So if you can't afford a professional cleaning, and it's all right if you can't, you want to do the little things that they would probably do in a deep clean. You want to make sure that your windows are clean.
Inside and out.
Inside and out.
Out could be hard, but inside and out.
But inside and out.
Figure it out, people.
Yeah, figure it out. You want to make sure your windows are clean. You also want to pay attention to things like your baseboard. And
you don't think people clean their baseboards every week? We do not either.
But you really want to pay attention to those things, to your baseboards, and to just handprints that you don't typically notice that are on the corners of walls, or when you're wrapping, when the corner wraps the wall.
When you're wrapping.
Yeah. Yeah. But little things like that. So, and with that, once you're at that point and that you've cleaned that house and that it's in a fairly good place where you feel the staging of the furniture is open and you're inviting people in, they're feeling like they can move through the space, a pop of color.
There you go. So declutter, clean, and only then
a pop of color.
That's going to be my new phone ring now. Pop of color.
And what I mean,
what do you mean? You got to explain.
The one thing that I think in reference to a pop of color, and it can come in many forms.
Because I'm just thinking of a big red pillow.
Right. The one thing that,
I'm a simple man.
That's kind of partly. I'm fairly simple too. But if you can bring in an interesting color that is kind of reflected in the room, but just hints of it, and then if you can place that in a specific place, like on a couch, in a corner, on a chair, or something like that, that just kind of brings that eye into focus. A lot of times in a kitchen, there can be a red mixing
bowl, mixing the mixer things.
Those thingies, I can't even think of it right now. Anyway, Sarah, sorry.
They're yelling at us. It's called a. We don't know.
But something like that, where it's super simple. Nothing's on the counters.
Or you see like a bowl full of, lemons or oranges or something. Yeah, so bold color doesn't have to be like red.
No.
It can be just bright.
Yeah.
Right?
Just something that brings you in. So
draws you into the space.
Yeah. Pop of color.
Pop of color. So but you got to get through the cleaning. You got to get through the decluttering. And so we really want to, that's the thing. Is like when you stage your own home, you are constantly fighting your own memories of that home. Right. So you see it in a certain way. And when somebody comes in, even just have a friend come in and go, what would you do to help me declutter this? They'll say stuff you haven't even thought of. Right. They'll say, why is that suitcase in the corner of your room for the last 5 years? Right.
Jim, why is that suitcase in the corner of our room?
Because I travel, Tracy. It's just, that's where it is. If we sell our house, I will move it. I promise. But that's the thing. Before you get to pop of color, you've got to go to the other things. Because there's the pop of color on a big pile of mess.
Right.
All right.
No, yeah. So it's super important to kind of go through all the different stages before you get to that point, I guess. Yes. And there's still other things, layers that are all in there, but we just wanted to mention that.
And we want to tell them all to you, but we want to keep these podcasts kind of short and easy to follow and walk away from.
And sweet.
Short and sweet. That's you. So minus the short.
I'm tall.
She's very tall. But here's the thing. Sell your house, because right now
is the time.
It's the perfect time.
Now is the time.
And so people are hanging on to their houses, or they're kind of waiting to see what the market does. No, if you're a buyer, okay, I get it. Wait to see what the market does. But if you're a seller, I really honestly think you should strongly consider putting your house on the market right now.
Yeah.
If you've ever thought about it.
Now is the time.
All right. I think we beat that to death, don't you think?
I don't know.
Okay. We'll continue to beat it to death. Go, dead horse, to go. Anyway, I think that's our show. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a wrap.
Everybody have a good week, and we will see you or talk to you next Friday.
With Ready to Stage episode.
Ready to Sell.
We
got a new podcast? Welcome to our new podcast, everybody. Ready to Stage. It's going to be a sister podcast to Ready to Sell, in which case we talk about selling and staging.
Which actually is a great title.
We should change our podcast. Change everything. Okay, we're done. You're done with us, I'm sure. Okay. Bye, everybody.